Welcome to another episode of Cooking with Island Bwoy Cuisine. Today I'm alone, but it doesn't mean I don't have great food. So tonight we're going to be showing you how to make oven jerk pork, and specifically jerk pork belly. Now it's cold outside, and so I was thinking I need something to pick me up and make me feel a little bit of home, kind of warm the spirits. And I came across this nice slab of pork belly at the supermarket, and I decided, you know what, that's what we're doing tonight. So here I have a pork belly, and the pork belly comes from, literally starts halfway up the side of the pork right down to underbelly, undercarriage. And typically that's where you get your bacon from. If you look at this is a prize meat because of the layering of the fat in between there and the lean meat that is coming out. And then the skin on top, which provides a nice rind for you to chew on with a red stripe beer. So what I did was I had a large enough piece, so I decided to show you guys how to do it and enjoy it at home. Of course, if you have a grill, the better it is. All right, so what I have here is about a pound of pork belly, and what I'm going to do is you want to make sure your meat is dry all the way around. So you pat it dry if it has a lot of moisture on there. Now, back home in Jamaica, specifically in Boston Bay, when they do their pork, they marinate it overnight. And at this point, I want to acknowledge Tari, who I knew as a young man growing up in Jamaica. My father would take me there and show me, and that's where we would eat and drink and play dominoes and splash in the water. But what they would do is, typically, they would score under the pork belly, here, under the pork meat. And of course, they're using the whole hog at that time. And the reason why they do that is because they want the seasoning to get all the way in and, mix with the fat and give it good flavor. Then, for our purposes, because we're going to do it in the oven, we're going to score it on the top. Right? Just want light scores there. And then we're going to first start out with a little bit of salt. You don't need a lot of salt on here because of my seasoning. You still have to use salt because the Island Bwoy jerk seasoning is not packed with salt. Our seasoning goes a far way. What will happen is that a lot of times the seasoning, the spices that you get that you're going to use, they tell you only use like a teaspoon or whatever, and all you get is pure salt. In our case, we don't do that. You can add, there is salt of course in there, but you can add a little bit more to bring out more of the flavor of what you're cooking. So we're not selling you short. So I've salted my pork, and now I'm going to add, here I have about a tablespoon of jerk. You can use less if you want, and you want to get it in there. Rub that on there, get around it. Now, there's a big misnomer that jerk is overly spicy and you can't eat it because you're going to die from the heat or the pepper that is coming from it. That is certainly not the case. What will happen is when you go to a jerk stand in Jamaica, they'll have additional pepper sauce on the side that you can use. So it's not a competition for who can eat the hottest of meat, and that is not why it's renowned. When you eat jerk, you get that tingling feeling and a little bit of heat coming out of the top of your head. And what that actually does is it wakes up your senses and you start to salivate. Yes, you're going to get the pores on the top of your head opening and you're going to be sprouting water a little bit. But I assure you, with real jerk, that spicy heat dissipates, and then all of a sudden it just kind of comes in ebbs and flow. It goes woo, woo, woo on your palate. And what happens with that, it leaves you with that feeling of you want more of it. And so for the heat lovers or the spicy lovers, those on that fire trip, they'll add more pepper sauce to their jerk. And for those who enjoy it just the way it is, they're at peace. So now we've seasoned our meat. What you want to do is to put this in your fridge overnight. When you put it in your fridge overnight, you want to leave it uncovered. So your refrigerator with the spices and all that is there, your refrigerator is going to smell very aromatic. And a good aroma is going to be filling your fridge. You won't complain, trust me. So you leave it open and let it kind of dry out overnight in the fridge. Now the next day you can put it in your oven at any time you choose. You just want to give it that time for the marinade to soak into the meat. You're gonna, ideally, for me today, what I did was I cook it at 200 degrees. I started out at 200 degrees and I put it on a rack. We're gonna simulate how they do it back in the islands. They have a pit, of course, with the pimento wood there, that's like slats with heat coming up through it. So we're gonna put it on a rack, which simulates our slats of wood. And to get started, we're going to cover it, just like they do. Now, originally they started out with wood, branches, leaves, and this is associated with the Maroons who were runaway slaves hiding from the British. So they would dig pits, bury the meat, and let it cook, and the aroma would fill the mountains, and the British soldiers didn't know where to go. And after they've done fighting their battles, they would go back and feast. So we cover it and we put it in a 200-degree oven for about 2 hours. And then after that, we take off the cover and let it continue to cook for about half hour. Then we're going to turn up our oven to 350 degrees and give it another hour, hour and a half. And then it'll do its thing. All right. Trust me, this is worth the wait when you cook it. You'll see what we end up with when we did our dish. Over here, we have our finished product. I did this earlier. And if you can see, you see that succulent, you see that line there, that bead, that's where the fat was. And most of it, it's still there. Some is still there the further you go to the thicker parts. But that flavor is still there with the fat and the flavor is all mixed. So I think we should try it and see what it's like. You would get this with cooked ground provision or like hardo bread. Some people, most of the times, they don't even bother with ketchup. They just go with this pepper sauce that is a mixture of Scotch bonnet pepper, vinegar, a little bit of garlic, and some water. Some people will cook it depending on the stall that you go to. Some people are going to cook it. Some people just put it in there and let it marinate and steep. And because it's cane vinegar, it gives off the sweet, sweet aroma. So for us today, or for dinner tonight, I should say, we're going to be having it with green beans. Now you can cut this however you choose. Typically, we get them in cubes in Jamaica. Oh, look at that, baby. Cooked right through. And the guys down there, when they cook it, they typically sell it by weight. You know, and they don't use a scale. And for some reason, you try to test them on a scale and see what it's like. You know, they're right on the teeth. They've been doing it so long. Look on the back there. You see how juicy it is? All right. That's why they cut it up and serve it with bread. So we're going to put this on here. Of course, we want the fat, combination of the fat and the skin. That's just beautiful. This makes for a nice light meal for me anyway, not for the camera person, but let's go in here and try this bad boy. Beautiful. You have to try this at home. Remember, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. More importantly, order a bottle. This will make a great meal for those cold nights. Take care. Until next time, Island Bwoy.